Welcome back, everybody. In this particular tutorial, we're going to be working with the color as element page, and you can get to that by opening up your document. Over on the right side, click on Pages, come down here to page 6 and just double click it, and that'll bring you here. And this is what we are looking for. If we take a look at our finish guide, is we're basically going to be adding color to specific elements on our page, as well as mixing a few colors ourselves. And finally, if you need help, you can always come over here to your student guide and it will list all the details that you need to know. All right, I'm going to move this over here to the side. Now keep in mind, again, this is just dealing with the basics of color. We will not be getting into the psychology of color. We'll be covering that in a future lesson later on. All right, so let's take our zoom tool and let's go and zoom in at the top and work our way down. I'm going to click and drag around the element I want to work with. Go to my selection tool, and let's go and change our view mode. So if you're still in preview mode doesn't show the guides or the bounding boxes of elements. Let's go and change that. Come up here to view, come down to screen mode, and select normal. Just makes it a little bit easier, especially anytime you're working with text, to know where those bounding boxes are. So we're going to click on our first text box, which is color element right here. And again, we're going to apply some color to it. However, we don't want to apply the same color to all the text. So this means that we actually have to get into the text box and only select the portions of text that we want to affect. So with that, I'm going to come over here to my text tool. I'm going to click inside the box, and I'm going to highlight the word color. Now, according to our sheet, this needs to be 100% cyan. Now, whenever we're dealing with colors, and you'll notice that typically what we've been doing so far is we've been working with our swatches. The panel that we're going to work with is, let's actually open up the color panel. So I'm going to close out the swatches here, come over here to window, and bring up color. Then go over here to color. And I need to pull that down. It's going to give us a little bit more options right here. So right now, you'll notice that the color it's showing is 100% black. So to get to CMYK, inside the color panel, I'm going to click on the hamburger button right here and choose CMYK. So this shows me the breakdown of color for the actual element that I have. Now again, because we're dealing with print, which is what we're often going to work with, we're dealing with CMYK. Cyan, magenta, yellow, and black. K is for black. So we want 100% cyan, which is the C right here. So again, making sure that we have the T selected, not the box, but the T, and we have our fill. Drag your slider all the way over to the right, or you can also type in 100%. But notice how nothing changed. That's because we still have 100% black. So we want to take this percentage and drop it all the way down to 0. And now when we deselect it, we've got the blue. So again, we wanted only 100% cyan, no other colors. Now, go ahead and select the word element. So click and drag your text cursor and select the word element. And again, notice right now it's telling us that it's 100% black. Come over to your hamburger button, go to CMYK. Go ahead and drop the K all the way down to 0 and change the magenta, which is the M, to 100%. And you can deselect. So this shape, the word color, is 100% cyan. The word element is 100% magenta. Now let's select the word over here, same thing as before. Select the word as, taking our text tool, hamburger button, CMYK, make it 100% cyan. Again, we need to bring down black because here's what it looks like if I deselect. You don't see any difference. That's because all that black ink, that 100% black ink, is overriding your cyan color. So select this and drag that all the way down. Okay, then highlight the word and we're going to make this 100% magenta. Hamburger button, CMYK, magenta. And we're going to slide this all the way down. So that's how you work with the color panel, working within inside CMYK. Now, we'll talk about this much later. Right now, I just kind of want to introduce you to how to work with this inside InDesign. But color can be a very finicky thing. So as we get into a future lesson, we're going to talk about how important it is understanding what CMYK is and how it relates to print versus RGB, which is red, green, and blue. All right, so let's scroll down on the page here. Now for this particular circle, I've already given you the formula right here. So select the circle. Again, notice it's at 100% black. Go to CMYK. Now this time we're actually going to mix a few colors. So notice our black is at 60%, so you can either adjust this down with a slider or you can also type it in. That's our 60% black. Now we're going to add 60% magenta to it. Notice what happens is it's going to affect the color or the actual temperature of this particular shape. As we add 60% magenta, notice it's going to get a little bit warmer. Okay. And finally we need 50% cyan. So we basically have a nice purple. Okay. Now go and select the line that is sitting here in the background. Now again, we don't deal with fill colors for a stroke. So you can click on this stroke right here and remix them by going up to the hamburger button or clicking on CMYK. And you can see here it's set at 100% black. So let's go and add these same formula numbers to it. So 50% cyan, hit enter. 60% magenta, enter. Again, notice how it still looks black. That's because we have 100% black functioning. That's like the full amount of ink that you can apply. So let's drop this back to 60%. Now we have that purple. Now you'll notice from our student guide, it's asking us to change the opacity to 30%. So opacity is one way that you can sort of force a bit of a screened or tinted look, similar to how we did with value when we changed our blacks to 10%, 20%, 30% as well. And that's okay if you're on a white background like this. So let's go and come over here to our properties panel, open it up. With the line tool selected, we can come down here to our appearance, come down to opacity, and we can change this to 30%. Now keep in mind, whenever you're dealing with opacity, basically opacity allows you to be able to see through it. Fortunately, there's nothing inside the background, so this opacity in this particular function works a lot like an actual tint or screen. All right, I'm going to close that out and scroll down the page here. Let's select our gray box, and this, according to this, needs to be 20% yellow. So again, inside of our color box, we click on the fill. It's at 30% black. Go to CMYK, change this to 20% yellow, and set our K value to 0. Again, this is just kind of showing you how you can sort of mix colors using CMYK. Again, you can get a wide range, a variety of things playing around with it, but I guarantee you, this is not the way you want to try to pick colors for your document. As we progress further on and we get into the psychology of color, I'm going to show you one of the most used color books that I use and easiest ways to choose color for things. Oops, that needs to be 20%. Okay, so that looks good. And it looks like over here we need to change the color of a certain line of text because color can help draw your eyes to it. As you've read about, color will always override value. So it's right over here. So we're going to double click inside this text box to get into it. We're going to highlight the sentence, this sentence is important. Come over here to our color panel, CMYK, change this to 100% magenta, black all the way down to 0. So whenever we deselect, that text now will read as being important. Come down here to the bottom. So again, we're basically just working with how to apply color to things. So in this particular case, we're applying color to text. And it looks like we're going to apply the same amount of color to all the text within inside this text box, as well as a stroke. So if that's the case, we can go to our selection tool and select the overall text box to begin with. All right, so we've done that. Come over here to our color panel. Now remember, by default, it may always sort of go to that rectangle. Any color you start applying now will be applied to the bounding box, not to the text. So make sure you click on the text. Right now it's set to black. Come over here to your hamburger button, click on CMYK, and let's start adjusting the values. According to this, it needs to be 20% magenta. We're going to drag this down to 0 for black. Magenta, we're going to drag up to 20. Type that in, maybe a little bit easier. 20%, and we need to have a stroke as well. That is 100% magenta. So with that, notice right now we currently have the fill selected. Click on the icon below it. This is your stroke. And we're going to type in 100% for magenta. And you'll notice that the minute you add a color to the stroke, you automatically get a point size. So if you wanted to, you could begin to adjust the point size for this to make it a little bit thicker. The default is always 1. Very good. So for this final last bit, you're going to get annoyed. My apologies up front. All right, so going from left to right, we're going to select the left square over here, and you'll notice the formula is 20% cyan, 20% black. There is a pattern here. So I'm going to go to my hamburger button. I'm going to type in 20, and then 20 for this. This will give it sort of a muted feel. So for example, if we were to take out this, take out the black, notice how much brighter it gets. So by adding additional black to it, we begin to mute that color. Okay. Yeah, and the third one down, we want to change it to 40% cyan, 40% black. So we're going to go to CMYK, 40% cyan, 40% black. All right, so let's skip over one and go to our 5th square. This is going to be 60% cyan, 60% black. Hamburger button, CMYK. Okay, go over, skip one. This will be 80%. Basically increasing our values up by 20 each time we go across, with the exception of this very last one. This one will be, CMYK, this one will be 100% cyan and 90% black. The reason we didn't make it 100% black is because if we did that, it would just be a very rich black that has blue in it. We'll change that back to 90. Okay, very good. So now let's start on the end and we'll go from the right all the way down. So let's select this one, which is already at 100% black. Go to CMYK. This is going to be magenta, 20% black, and then 20% magenta. Skip over the blue one. This will now be 40%. And 40%. Skip over the blue. This will be 60% for each, magenta and black. This will now be 80% for both. And finally, 100% magenta, 90% black. Okay, so let's go and zoom out. I'm going to press Control 0 on my keyboard. I'm going to change my view, go up to View, Screen Mode, Preview. All right, looks like we've done everything we needed to do.